The price of inaction. When a leader makes a bold decision and it fails, everyone can see it. There is a meeting, a report, a number written in red. Someone asks, what happened? Someone asks, who proved it? Failure leaves evidence. But there is another kind of failure, one that rarely appears on a spreadsheet. No announcement, no investigation, no uncomfortable meeting. It is the decision that was never made, the experiment that was never attempted, the opportunity that quietly disappeared while everyone was being careful. And because nothing visibly broke, we call it safety. There is a line usually attributed to Wayne Gretzky. You miss 100% of the shots you never take. It has become almost too familiar, printed on office walls, dropped into slide decks whenever someone wants a team to be brave. Underneath the motivational language is something psychologically serious. A missed shot is visible. The puck leaves the stick. It misses the net. Everyone sees the result. When the shot is never taken, there is no visible failure, only an outcome that never got the chance to exist. That inaction makes things feel strangely comfortable and very hard to measure. Human beings do not weigh opportunity and danger equally. Negative information tends to pull more attention than equally strong positive information. Researchers call this negativity bias. In leadership, it usually sounds like pessimism. What could go wrong? What if the staff resists? What if the new system fails? What if I am blamed? These are not foolish questions. Good leaders should think about risk. But risk analysis distorts when every possible failure is treated as concrete, while every possible gain stays abstract. The danger feels real. The opportunity feels hypothetical. And the brain protects itself from what it feels as real. Pessimism is not always the enemy. Julie Norm and Nancy Cantor describe defensive pessimism, a strategy where people deliberately imagine problems so they can prepare for them. That works. A manager pictures a staffing shortage and arranges backup coverage. A maintenance lead expects a pump to fail and orders the part early. This is what preparation looks like. The trouble starts when imagining failure replaces preparing for it. The risk list grows, no test gets designed, no owner gets assigned, no decision date gets set. Fear arrives dressed as analysis. Delay arrives dressed as responsibility. Then comes the second force, loss aversion. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky showed that people judge decisions relative to what they already hold. The present becomes the reference point. Anything above it feels like a gain. Anything below it feels like a loss. And losses generally carry more psychological weight than equivalent gains. For a leader, this creates an imbalance. The existing process may be slow. The old system may frustrate staff every single day, but it is familiar. Its costs have already blended into the background. A proposed change is different. Its price is visible. Its disruption is visible. Its chance of failing is visible. So the leader weighs the visible risk of moving against an unstated assumption that standing still will cost nothing. Standing still is also a decision. That leads to the third force, status quo bias. In experiments published in 1988, William Samuelson and Richard Zeckhauser found that people picked an option far more often once it was labeled the existing condition. The option did not get better, it just became current. And when something is current, changing it starts to feel like interference. The old procedure receives a privilege it never earned. We stop asking whether it is still the best option. We start asking whether the alternative is safe enough to justify replacing it. The current system does not have to prove itself, only the new ones. That is how yesterday's decision becomes today's default and tomorrow's obstacle. These forces work like a chain. I'll call it the 3 bias chain. Negative bias points attention at what could go wrong. Loss aversion makes those losses feel heavier than the gains. Status quo bias then presents doing nothing as the neutral option. It is not neutral. Every delayed decision still burns time. Every unchanged process still produces consequences. Every opportunity has an expiry date, even when nobody writes it down. The cost of action arrives as an invoice. The cost of inaction arrives as erosion, a little slower, a little less relevant, a little harder to recover. Kodak is the standard warning, and the popular version of the story is wrong. Kodak did not fail because nobody there understood digital photography. A Kodak engineer named Steve Sasson built the first digital camera prototype in 1975. The real problem was that digital threatened an extremely profitable film business. The existing system was not broken, it was making money. That made the new technology look less like a market and more like a demolition. A company can see the future clearly and still hesitate because reaching it means weakening the business that built the company. And then there's Netflix. Netflix faced a version of the same conflict. Remember, its original business was DVDs. Its DVD business was not dying when streaming launched in 2007. The 2008 annual report still expected DVD growth for years. Netflix invested in streaming anyway. It built a system that would eventually replace the one paying the bills. The execution was not clean. The quick start decision in 2011 cost the company enormous goodwill. Bold movement can still be handled badly, but the direction was right. Sometimes protecting the future means letting the present business matter less. Next, we'll talk about Amazon. Amazon built a different answer to uncertainty. The 1997 shareholder letter laid out the approach. Measure the investments. Drop the ones that do not produce acceptable returns. Put more into the ones that work. Learn from both. That did not remove risk. It gave the company a method for handling risk. Amazon Web Services launched in 2006. Renting computing infrastructure over the internet had almost nothing to do with the public image of an online bookstore. The decision was not based on certainty. It was based on capability Amazon already had, a customer problem it believed was real, and an experiment it could expand if it worked. The company did not need to know the whole future. It needed a measurable next step. Which brings us to OKRs. OKRs, not as a scoring system, but as a way of making honest conversations safe. OKR coaches usually avoid starting with the terminology. They start with plain questions. What are we working on? What are we trying to solve? What outcome do we want? Objectives and key results form afterward, out of the answers. Here's the part worth sitting with. A team assessed its own major project at a 40% chance of success and said so out loud. Think about what the three biases predict here. The risk feels concrete. The reputational loss feels heavier than any credit for honesty. Saying nothing feels neutral. Every force in this video points that team towards silence. They named the number anyway, 40%. Leadership did not respond with blame. It responded with support, resources, and attention. The project succeeded. Notice what the 40% actually was. Not a failure report, an early warning with still time left on it. A barrier discovered at completion is only an explanation. The answer is not reckless action. It is not shooting blindly because a poster told you to be brave. It is changing the questions. Instead of asking only what we might lose by acting, ask what we are already losing by waiting. Instead of asking what happens if the whole plan fails, ask what the small, safe version looks like. Instead of asking how to guarantee success, ask what evidence would tell us to continue, change direction, or stop. Good leadership does not remove uncertainty. It makes uncertainty manageable. It separates one-way doors from reversible experiments. It puts owners and dates and measures on things. Every organization remembers the project that failed, the budget that blew, the idea customers rejected, the decision that had to be reversed. Outside the meeting room are the failures nobody recorded, the employee whose idea was never tested, the outdated process nobody challenged, the need noticed too late, the technology dismissed because the old system was still profitable. The shot never taken leaves no mark on the scoreboard. That does not mean it had no value. Doing nothing leaves no fingerprints. That does not mean nobody made a decision. So the next time caution starts to feel neutrality, stop. Look past the invisible risk. Look at the opportunity that is quietly shrinking and ask, what price of inaction are you not counting?